World War I did not begin with a single gunshot. It began with decades of tension, fear, ambition, and perhaps the most fragile alliances the world had ever seen. By 1914, Europe wasn't just unstable, it was a powder keg. All it needed was a spark. To truly understand how this catastrophic war started, we must look at the long-term causes that built up the pressure, and the specific trigger points that finally ignited it all. This isn't just a story about politics. It's a terrifying lesson in what happens when national pride turns into a lethal poison. The first major cause we need to talk about is nationalism. Now, nationalism is loyalty to one's nation, and that sounds good, right? But in early 20th century Europe, it became extreme and incredibly dangerous. Empires ruled over huge swaths of land containing many different ethnic groups, and those groups wanted independence. Nowhere was this more dangerous than in the region known as the Balkans. Serbs, Croats, Bosnians, they all lived under the control of the vast, aging Austro-Hungarian Empire, and they all desperately wanted freedom. Specifically, Serbia dreamed of uniting all Slavic people into one massive nation. But this extreme pride wasn't just limited to small ethnic groups fighting for freedom. Powerful established countries like Germany, France, and Britain also believed their nation was superior, and therefore had the right, even the duty, to dominate Europe. National pride quickly morphed into aggressive rivalry. That rivalry then spiraled into hatred. And when hatred takes over, compromise becomes virtually impossible. Everyone was ready to fight to prove they were the best. Next, we have imperialism, the scramble for power. Europe's great powers were in constant, brutal competition for colonies across Africa and Asia. Why did colonies matter so much? Because colonies meant wealth, they meant resources, and they meant undeniable global influence. Britain and France had already carved out vast, globe-spanning empires. But Germany, which had only unified as a country in 1871, felt left out. They wanted more. They demanded a bigger place at the table, often referred to as a place in the sun. This intense competition created constant nerve-wracking tension between the great powers. Every single new colony gained by one nation felt like a direct, humiliating loss to another. Diplomacy frayed and became increasingly aggressive. Trust vanished into thin air. Essentially, these powerful nations started preparing their resources, their industries, and their people, not for peace, but for an inevitable, massive conflict. Instead of trying to calm these rising tensions, Europe armed itself. This leads us directly to the third cause: militarism, or preparing for war on an epic scale. Germany ramped up its military might, expanding both its standing army and its powerful navy. Britain immediately responded by building even more cutting-edge warships, trying to maintain its traditional dominance of the seas. France increased its troop numbers. Russia mobilized millions of soldiers. This atmosphere of preparation gave enormous political power to military leaders. They weren't just advising the politicians anymore. They were often directing them. War plans were meticulously drawn up in exquisite detail, not based on if war might come, but when it would arrive. The widespread belief took root that war was not only coming, but that it was necessary. And if war was coming anyway, many reasoned, wouldn't it be better to strike first and gain the advantage? To protect themselves in this increasingly hostile environment, nations formed complex and rigid alliances. This is the fourth cause, the alliance system, and it was a chain reaction just waiting for the match. Europe effectively split into two massive opposing camps. First, there was the Triple Alliance, consisting of Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy. Opposing them was the Triple Entente, which brought together Britain, France, and Russia. In theory, these alliances were supposed to deter war. The logic was, we're so big and scary that no one will dare attack us. In reality, they guaranteed that any conflict would rapidly spread. A local disagreement between just two countries could no longer stay local. Instead, it was guaranteed to pull entire continents into battle. Europe was now locked into a lethal system where one single mistake, one single assassination, could trigger a global war. And the place where that mistake was most likely to happen was the Balkans, Europe's most dangerous, volatile region. The Balkans were unstable, fiercely emotional, and saturated with aggressive nationalism. Austria-Hungary controlled Bosnia, a territory that was home to many ethnic Serbs. Serbia fiercely wanted Bosnia freed so they could be united under a single Serbian nation. Russia, viewing itself as the protector of all Slavic peoples, supported Serbia's ambitions. Austria-Hungary, terrified of losing control of its empire, refused to give in. And Germany, always looking to flex its muscles, backed Austria-Hungary completely. The Balkans were called the powder keg of Europe for a very good tragic reason. Then came the trigger, the event that set off the entire system, the assassination at Sarajevo. On June 28, 1914, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, the heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, visited Sarajevo. A young, determined nationalist named Gavrilo Princip assassinated both the Archduke and his wife. This was the spark, but let's be clear, it was not the underlying cause. Austria-Hungary, seeking to finally crush Serbian nationalism, blamed the government of Serbia directly and issued a list of extremely harsh demands. Serbia accepted most of them, but not all of the requirements. That was enough for Austria-Hungary. On July 28, 1914, they declared war on Serbia. This declaration initiated the unstoppable domino effect. Russia mobilized its troops to defend its Slavic ally, Serbia. Seeing this mobilization, Germany, which had guaranteed support to Austria-Hungary, declared war on Russia. Because Germany had a war plan called the Schlieffen Plan that required defeating France quickly, Germany then declared war on France. To get to France quickly, Germany invaded neutral Belgium. This invasion of Belgium forced Britain, which had guaranteed Belgian neutrality, to declare war on Germany. Within days, all of Europe was officially at war. Within a few short weeks, the global empires of these nations meant the entire world was involved. What started as a regional crisis, the assassination of an archduke, mushroomed instantly into a global catastrophe. World War I, the war that was supposed to end all wars, wasn't caused by one man, one nation, or even one single event. It was caused by the combined, toxic influence of intense nationalism, aggressive imperialism, rampant militarism, and a set of unbelievably dangerous and rigid alliances. The assassination was only the match. The massive fire had been waiting, building up pressure for years. And once the fighting began, there was absolutely no turning back. Thank you for watching this deep dive into the true causes of the Great War. If you found this historical breakdown useful, please consider subscribing for more historical content.